Hi, everyone. I'm Denise Garth, Chief Strategy Officer at Majesco, and you're listening to the Future of Insurance Industry Leaders podcast series. Follow along as I interview the best and brightest leaders in the insurance industry and insurtech landscape to bring you the latest in digital transformation, innovation, industry trends, challenges, and opportunities, as well as next-gen technologies. We use our experience to anticipate what's next without losing sight of what's now. Stay tuned to find out your next now. Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast for the Future of Insurance. I'm thrilled today to have one of our customers, NYPIUA, joining us. And in particular, I am thrilled to have Ken Lee join us. Ken is the CIO and the CISO at the organization. Welcome, Ken.
Well, thank you very much, Denise. Happy to be here.
When we met, we've had a number of different chats. You have a really interesting background, really broad and deep. It's an amazing kind of background outside of the industry to be able to bring inside the industry. So why don't you give a little bit about your background, your role, and some background about who NYPIUA is, what your business focus is.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Denise, and happy to be here again. I have been working in IT/business side for probably around 30 years. I started my career at AT&T Bell Labs. I did about 8 years doing technology research. Became part of Lucent Technology when they spin off. So I was running their IT organization at Lucent Technologies. Left, and then I joined Honeywell. I was located in Phoenix, Arizona, and running the IT organization. And I spent 3 years overseas in Asia Pacific, in Shanghai in particular, with Honeywell, running their global business services. So, kind of establishing offshore operation, the general business processes that we need to focus on. And I came back to the US, became the CTO at Manpower Group in Milwaukee. Spent about 6 years there, and then I joined Aon as their global CTO after I left Manpower Group. I came back to Chicago, became the Chief Digital and Information Officer at the Joint Commission, a healthcare organization. Then finally, I joined right now as a CIO and CISO at NYPIUA, or New York Property Insurance Underwriting Association. It's a long name for just over a year. Joined NYPIUA, and NYPIUA is an organization that is what we call the Aftermarket Insurance Association, meaning for commercial insurance company, they have all kinds of customers, and they have providing insurance to clients. But at cases that the insurance may become too risky or high risk from their perspective, then we NYPIUA and other similar fair plans would be offering those aftermarket insurance policy for those clients. I have been here for just over a year and been totally enjoying it as part of the transformation journey. You asked about the focus. My focus is really to advance IT, their capabilities by leveraging technologies to set the strategic direction, enhancing operation excellence, and most importantly is to improve customer experience.
So one of the things that we talked about is obviously NYPIUA is a customer of ours and has selected our solutions. But when you came in, you saw that they had started this evolution and transformation, but you've really tried to accelerate and streamline it so that you can really move off of the legacy onto the intelligent core and cloud, really be able to then leverage that to be able to do some innovative things. Talk about that journey and what you did differently when you came in to refocus the effort and how it's meeting your customers and market needs today.
Yes, when I joined, NYPIUA was already on Majesco, but they were on what we call the on-prem solution, on-prem version of that. But there are many other areas that I also kind of focus on in terms of a total transformation. So I kind of work with the team, the senior executive team, building a strategy that mainly focusing on 3 phases. Okay, the first phase is what I call the foundational phase. So by the term of that name is very basic stuff, right? So we need to get the foundation strong. We have a lot of self application hosted in on-prem. We are moving them to cloud, or we have moved them to cloud, such as Microsoft 365. We have implemented a new IVR solution. We have looked at our cybersecurity posture, looking at strategy and technology to strengthen those, as well as strengthening the business engagement, working very closely with our business partners to make sure that we align on our strategy, our plans. IT is there to enable them. At the same time, IT also provide thought leadership in terms of how technology should be shaping some of the operation and transaction. So we completed the first phase pretty much, in a few months. And in parallel, we were looking at what I call the transformational phase, which is where we move a lot of our application to cloud. Our core system, as I mentioned earlier, was Majesco, but on-prem. So we completed the migration to Majesco Cloud solution, including the intelligent core, which is very critical, important for our business operation. And then in addition to that, we also completed our infrastructure as a service migration, meaning we have already completed all our infrastructure into Microsoft Azure Cloud so that we can take advantage of the modern technologies as well as the ability to scale to optimize our resource consumption. So now we are moving into the third phase as we speak, okay, what I call the emerging phase, which intelligent core could be very helpful and strategic in that phase, because we're looking at AI technology, machine learning technologies, and data analytics technology, and be able to kind of drive raw data into meaningful information, into business insights, and then into business actions and decisions. So that's kind of the life cycle that I would like to move the organization towards. So those emerging technologies, AI, ML, data analytics, will be very helpful. That's why we're focusing on that phase currently.
It's amazing how you've been able to accomplish so much in a short period of time. But, one of the things that we talked about is that you've worked for some pretty large and complex organizations in other industries, and even in our industry, Aon is a very large and complex organization. But you would think that working for a smaller company, you would think it would be a lot simpler, but that's not typically the fact in a lot of smaller companies. They've got really old legacy technology. They've got a combination of manual work and workarounds and one-offs and a lot of different things that really creates a level of complexity that I like to call it a spaghetti ball of complexity. How have you addressed this? So that you don't bring forward that complexity into this new foundation, because that complexity is really what's inhibited most companies being able to bring new products to market, to have speed to market, to do some innovative types of things. And you don't want to recreate that. So how did you kind of work through that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Whether large organizations or small organizations have their own share of complexity, maybe the technical debts, the legacy environment. My perspective for the small organization is, especially those who have a longer history like ours, because they organically grow their business, okay? And they have certain business needs that IT would need to provide them, and then IT would just create the solution for them, in addition to what they had already. And then over time, they become more and more complex. It may be not as well thought out as a master plan, a strategy that they will work towards them. Sometimes they would just patch it up and go workarounds, those type of things are kind of creating some complexity. And to your point, the customization, the complexity are really enemies for kind of the objective that we try to achieve, right? So my focus is in one word: simplification. Okay, so how do we? I mean, it's easy to say than done, right? How do we do that without breaking?
Easy to say, sometimes hard to do.
So how do you do that while you are running the business, right? You cannot disrupt the business, but this has to be very strategic, right? So when we went through the foundational phase, transformational phase, we always keep that simplification in mind. Okay. So the example that we have was by moving away from the on-prem solution to the cloud solution would achieve some of those objectives, right? Because now you are not able to do as much customization as you like to, because now you're sharing the tenant, the platform with others. So that kind of helped us a little bit in focusing on what are the core business process that we need to look at. And then the what I call the application portfolio rationalization. Okay, we have like many companies, we have all kinds of applications, and they're important, they're core to the business, but a lot of the integration point, you use the term spaghetti bowl. What we need to do is rationalizing that. So that's part of our third phase, and we are making some good progress already in terms of mapping out the current application portfolio footprint, and then what the objective state or the target state would look like, and how do we most effectively move towards that. So that's kind of our strategy for simplifying our legacy environment.
In my own personal experience, I always chuckled when I'd push back on some kind of customization and I say, well, why do you need to do it? Well, we've always done it that way. And I said, but why did you do it? And then nobody could really answer it because it's just gone through years of just doing it because that's what you always did, rather than really kind of rethinking, do we really even need to do that today? Does it even make sense?
Exactly right. And sometimes, that's why when we use some of those cloud solutions, they have inherited best practices, best practice business processes. We have to ask ourselves and challenge ourselves and say why those standard processes would not meet your needs. Okay. If they could, then you don't need to customize. If there are legitimate reasons why that needs to be customized, then we got it. We understand, and we would do that accordingly. But not everything needs to be outside of the standard process.
You talked about that you guys have moved to the cloud and also with Intelligent Core, which has the embedded analytics, including GenAI and now agentic AI that we're building out agents with a number to be released in the fall release, but it also gives you access to all of your operational data. What excites you about this for the business, and what business value do you see for your company, both in terms of having access to all the data, but also what the power of GenAI and agentic AI is going to be able to do operationally?
Yeah, so with Intelligent Core solution, historically, we spend a lot of time, human effort, and time-consuming tasks to generate reports for various requirements. With the Intelligent Core, we actually have implemented a set of required reports already, which we kind of expected, actually realizing that there is a significant manual effort and time that we save. Okay, not just the time and effort, but also the accuracy, right? So it is very important that the data would be reporting requirements. And when you do the reporting manually by writing queries and patching data together, it's prone for errors. With our solution here, we are beginning to see much improved quality of the report, as well as the time and effort that we save. As far as the Gen AI type of capabilities built into the solution, as I mentioned earlier, our third phase is really talking about moving towards business intelligence and data analytics. So the Gen AI harnessing our vast amount of data. And it's not just within Majesco. We have data outside of Majesco solution. We have PeopleSoft, we have databases, we have structured data, unstructured data in People Spreadsheet, for example, that we believe could be harnessed by AI type technologies. Okay, so we are looking forward to further leveraging those technology for unleashing the power of data. So that, again, move towards from raw data to all the way to driving sound business action and decision. So that's what we are very excited about. And we might even think about how do we do a little bit more predictive analytics that kind of forecast a little bit longer and say, okay, what does it look like in terms of our business operation, and where do we need to modify, adjust, and adapt before it's too late.
I think one of the really exciting things is going to be the ability for insurers, when leveraging this new level of automation that GenAI and agentic AI can provide, is how that's going to impact and hopefully, I believe, drive down the expense ratios, which ultimately mean that you can have better pricing and be much more competitive in the marketplace, from a product perspective. And, that kind of takes me into the next area is that I think one of the real areas that you talked about is, and particularly for you guys, given the type of business that you do, it's how do you bring new products to market quickly and how do you seek out new markets for growth? What are you looking forward to with this transformation and new foundation that you guys have at being able to do that for the organization?
Yeah, so you mentioned about time is money. It makes our product more capable and more available for our customers, right? We are very excited about the AI, generative AI technologies that we're going to be embarking in our third phase. But to give you some maybe examples about how we could leverage those technology from a real time-saving perspective, right? Yeah. For example, we can think about using AI technology for document interpretation, automated document reviews. So in the example that, we have our claim analysts or underwriters, when they have to deal with a policy or claims, they have to read so many different documents to make sure that, they got the right information, the right perspective, whether it's eligible or not. So imagine that we use this technology to harness the various type of documents and be able to provide the answer or the perspective back to the analyst after they wrote their prompt, right? Based on the prompt that they wrote. So I believe that would be a very significant time saver, okay, for getting to the answer to those questions that they are looking for. The other simple example is I call the AI chatbot. Yep. Okay, so we have customer service rep, they answer phone calls, email all the time about, inquiries, about questions, about how to. I think a lot of those questions could be automated by, AI chatbot type technology so that, a large percentage of those calls could be handled automatically. So the agent, the customer service rep now can really spend the time on the high touch and high value transaction so that we create better customer experience for our client. Again, the goal for using this type of technology is to increase that efficiency, increase that productivity, so that people can have more time doing the more high value, high meaningful type of work.
One of the things that I really believe that level of automation and that helping to ingest all of that data and being able to assess it is that it's going to bring a new level of quality and consistency too. That when you've got humans involved, we're not always consistent in how we're kind of looking at stuff. And this brings a different level that we've not had in the industry for some time.
Yeah, and even documents could have inconsistent information, various documents, right? So then you harness this in terms of, hey, what is really the accurate answer to that question, right? So that, to your point, minimize and hopefully eliminate, some of those human errors. And then some of the other example is like intelligent quoting, right? How do we quote the premium for a policy? How do we harness, again, the intelligence behind it to do that much quicker? Automated payment processing. I mean, those things could be automated and not have to be done by a human being so that they have time to do some of the other work that they didn't have time to do before.
So one of the things that we talked about when we were prepping for this is that as you get your 3 phases in place, it's going to now provide you the opportunity as an organization to really focus around innovation. I think that for smaller organizations like NYPIUA, the level of sophistication of the technology, but the simplicity of being able to use it because of the embedded analytics really provides an opportunity to really kind of focus on some innovation, whether it's going to be products, whether it's going to be customer service, whether it's going to be looking at risk resiliency, whatever those things might be. What do you guys see as your opportunities to really take advantage of your new foundation that you've got in place, how innovation is going to be really key for that and an advantage that you guys are going to be able to have over potentially larger organizations that still have all this complexity?
Yeah, I mean, very good question. And smaller organization, they also want innovation. They also want to be able to leverage technology to do what they needed to do to advance their journey, right? But they're not always able to afford them. Okay, they're not
Yep.
able to, larger organization that they maybe have a little bit more financial resources and human resources. The way that we approach that is basically try to get a slice of a bigger pie. Okay, so when we kind of work with Majesco and maybe Microsoft and other
Yep.
technology platform, they have a lot of bells and whistles built into their platform. In order for us to be able to use those and build ourselves, we could not afford it, right? It's costly and it's challenging to do. So now they have already built into the solution, some of these capabilities. Now we are part of that platform and we are able to leverage the same technologies, the same capabilities like many bigger companies, but as a fraction of the cost, right? So that's kind of our approach in taking advantage of those technology and be able to advance our innovation accordingly.
Obviously what you've been able to accomplish in your three phases, and I know you're still working through your third phase in particular, it's really provided an amazing foundation, but it really took a different kind of an approach that was very much partnership oriented. Partnership with Majesco, partnership with Microsoft, partnership with your other providers, but also partnership internally with your business colleagues. What partnership expectations and relationship aspects were important to you and the organization? What was different, in particular from a Majesco standpoint, that you really wanted to take advantage of?
Yeah, so throughout my IT career, I have the opportunity to work with many partners,
Oh, yeah.
large and small, you name it, and anything in between. I have very particular expectation of working with partners, okay? But it comes down to a few important elements, okay? The first one is the partner has to have our best interest in
Mhm.
heart, okay? I know they are there for business, they need to make some money, and we all got that, right? But how do we create that win-win-win situations is very important. So, think about, what are the constraints that we are facing as a customers? What are the conditions that we are facing? Do it with the best interest in mind for our customers. And then responding in a timely manner with accurate communications. And most importantly is also, producing quality outcomes and
Mhm.
great experience, right? So, I'm picky, but in general, is kind of those are the important elements with a partner and the expectation of a vendor partners. And then it's funny to say, some vendors or partners, they are very engaged when they first try to get a contract in place, right? You're all there and talking all the time and responding quickly. But once you sign, they kind of disappear, right? That is obviously not good from any perspective. But working with Majesco, we're happy that you guys really helping us with our migration. And now we are implementing IC or Intelligent Core and agentic AI. There will be much more opportunities and work
Mhm.
together closely to advance our journey.
You've had a lot of experience with legacy transformation throughout your career. And in particular, most recently here at NYPIUA. What advice and best practices would you give to others, particularly for the mid to smaller insurers, for them to be successful in that transformation and not be afraid of it?
I think you just hit it, right? Not to be afraid of it, right? At the beginning of any transformational journey, especially the ones that seem to be more complex and challenging, it's very natural that, people have the fear. People don't want to break the business, right? When you transform, you are moving the foundation, you are moving parts. And how do we able to work with our business partners to make sure that during the transformation, we are not going to disrupt the business? That's very important, right? So don't be afraid of creating and taking on bold ideas. Again, we have heard all the fears and doubts about you really able to do that. It's very
Mhm.
significant journey, right? Not everything will pan out perfectly, obviously. Some may fail, but if you fail fast and you learn, and then you try to adjust and adapt and then pivot what you need to do better going forward. But never stop because you're afraid of it, right? Because fear is the enemy. So take the first step, take the second step, take the third step and continue to taking the steps and working closely with your business partners. Be very transparent. Okay, when things are not going the right way, don't sweep it in under the carpet, right? Be open, be transparent, be honest about it, recognize the challenges, and then work together to address those and keep going. Okay, so that's really what I would advise organization to do. Take some calculated risk, put your best effort in place, put your best people in place. Sometimes you have to work with a partner. You don't have enough resources inside your organization to do those. So again, come back to that partner's expectation, right? So how do you pick the right partner so they can help you to advance your journey? But once you do that, at the end of the day, more often than not, okay, you'll be amazed how much you can actually accomplish by unleashing that people potential.
Yeah, so true. So what's next for you and NYPIUA?
Well, we are embarking on our third phase, okay? And it's really about driving business intelligence, driving data analytics to get to the best business actions and decisions, automation of our business processes. Again, come back to the earlier examples about how do we improve productivity, efficiency, getting the time better spent on the high touch, high customer experience areas, and translate those productivity and efficiency into our customer products so that we can really delight our customer in a way that on how they can work with NYPIUA.
I think it's going to be so fun, amazing to see you guys' progress over the next year or two. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. You guys have done some amazing work in a very short period of time. That is, for other smaller organizations, should be very inspirational for them. So congratulations on all the work that you guys have done and what's ahead.
Thank you very much.
I always like to end the podcast with this one question. If you could use one word or phrase to describe the future of insurance, what would it be and why?
That's an interesting question. One word.
Or phrase. I said or phrase.
Okay, well, I stay with one word. I think the word that comes to mind is adaptive. Okay, so what I mean by that is not just insurance space, right? In many industries, right? We all are facing with the landscape of shifting customer expectations, technology advancements, increasing risk, the compliance governance requirements, you name it, right? Changes are the constant, so to speak, and we all have to be able to cope with those. And not to mention about technology is driving significant change in the industry. And technology itself are changing rapidly. A few years ago, we talk about AI, but not to the extent that we're talking about AI today. Insurance company would need to be adaptive, would need to get themselves in various dimensions, business operation, their planning, their project management, product management, all of those areas to be adaptive, build a system in a way that is flexible, scalable, simple, kind of focus on that word, adaptive, so that they don't get left behind in the dust.
Couldn't have said it better. Ken, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Looking forward to many more conversations ahead at our various different product councils and potential panels and stuff. You guys have done an amazing job, and it's going to be fun seeing the business outcomes as a result of it. So congratulations and thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Denise. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with you guys to continue our journey.
Sounds great.
That's it for this week's episode of Future of Insurance Industry Leaders podcast. Subscribe to our market-leading podcast series available wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in the next time.